looks like this. It has two tabs. One is example. Like this is pretty much an example of ready to go market size for some industry, like one of my clients. Just so you would keep it in mind as an example when you get lost, but the main tab that you will be working with would be the template one, this one. So there are yellow cells. Those are the one that changeable, that you can change, like you can change currency. Value theory is just an informational thing for the investors, You don't need to change that. You can change the currency. You definitely need to put your average deal size into the model before you start working with it. Here is separated small businesses and enterprises. This is the model for B2B usually, because most of startups are in B2B industry now. But it's not going to be very hard to transform it to B2C. I'll do a separate template for you and I'll put it in this materials of the lecture. So you put an average deal size. You might have a huge price list, like with a lot of options. We don't have to include all of it into the model. What we do need is to calculate the average deal size for a specific group or just for one group. You can have only one group, like you need to separate it to small companies and enterprises and put it right here, this average deal size. Next, important thing that you will need to find is this number, % of companies that open to your products and services. Like let's assume you're selling accounting software to businesses. So not all businesses would use your accounting software. There are people that are doing accounting on paper that don't even use computers, and it's a separate segment. There is a segment in your market that does accounting in Excel and they're fine with it. They're not going to pay for another software. There is another segment of your customers that develop a software on their own. Like it's usually big companies. They don't take software for external provider. They have the resources to develop their own customized software specifically for their company. And there is a fourth segment, the one that you need. These are the companies that already use an external accounting software or are about to use, like they're open to it, they're thinking about it. How do we get this data? We will dig into it in our target audience analysis section, but basically you will need to find a survey or some kind of report on your target audience that asks similar questions so you could make a data-based assumption. We will talk later on in this course how to do it. For now, let's just put here 20%, like assuming that 20% of companies in the USA, if you target USA, are using external accounting software or open to use external accounting software. With market share, it's tricky because it's almost no way to determine for sure what kind of market share you might have, what kind of piece of the pie you will cut. On average, you put 10%. This is if you don't have any other assumption, you can't do any other assumption based on other data. This market also exists. It could be one yours. So I put 10%. But in general, it depends on how many competitors are on the market. Is it monopolized or it's fragmented? Like if most of your competitors have 0.5 or 1% market share, that's probably what you're going to have to. Like I would start from 0.2 because it's a new company. I would put a little less market share. If it's a monopolized market, like there are not a lot of people, like in the space industry, for example, so each company holds around like 20 to 30 market share, then that could be your market share too. Like I would start with 15, for example. The example of fragmented market could be the online learning industry, for example. There are a lot of providers and each of them holds probably like 0.01 market share. So it really depends of what your market is and how many competitors there are. And you can put an assumption in the very beginning. You could put 10% here. And then you can just play along with this data in the end when you already fill it up. And it will be automatically calculated here. I'll show you. So you could play along and see what kind of market share looks more realistic to you. So when we filled up this one, we still need to fill up target verticals here and here. these are basically the niches or the markets that you will be targeting. Like if you develop accounting software, it's probably not the best strategy to target any company in US. It's better to have a strategy to target some specific industries, like law firms, like production companies, construction companies, maybe finance companies. Like you'll have some specialization for which companies your software works best for. Excuse me. So here's an example. I put law firms. You will put, ideally it would be 3 to 5 verticals. I left you 4 here. You can add or remove rows here as well. So let's make example of a law firm. And here you will have your regions. Like I left you here the most typical regions like USA, Canada, Europe, GCC, Asia. You can have your own regions. If you don't have separate regions, you can just leave one. Like if you're targeting the whole US as a country, you can just leave one region. It's also absolutely fine. It's just to help you segment your own market if it's a big one. Like if you're, for example, you serve in US, but you only serve in 3 states. So you need 3 states in a separate column to see the data for each of them. Here you need to fill up the number of companies in this vertical, in this market. So if we're talking only about US and we're talking about the law firms, you need to understand how many law firms are there in the US. This data is usually pretty easy to find. I'll just copy paste it and I'll say number of law firms in the USA. I just Google it. Usually this number is readily available right here. EBIS World is actually one of the biggest databases. They are pretty trustworthy, and I usually try to get the market size data sourcing from them. They have information for many, many industries, and it's almost always the latest one. Like try to get data for the last year or for this year, not like 3-5 years in the past, because the markets are changing pretty fast. So I take this number, I put it right here, and I also always copy the address of the source so I could check it, or I could leave it to the investors to check if they want to dig in. Here is the sources table. So I could understand where did I get this number, not getting lost. And as soon as we put these numbers here, the other ones are automatically calculated. You can use enterprise. You may not use it. You can just target one segment of companies in terms of size, but just in case for the convenience, I left it here for you. But let's see what's changed. So we calculated target addressable market. It's about $500 million. It calculates it at million USD here, because pretty much it takes all your customers, like all the law firms in the US, and it multiplies it by your average deal size and calculates it in dollars. We also calculated addressable market, which is 90 million. In this segment, we are considering percentage of companies that are open to your services, like pretty much we put, I think, 20% here, 20% of companies that are open to use external accounting software. So this is 90 million in this segment. And the last one is serviceable obtainable market, which is 9 million, because we put 10% market share for your specific company. So this is the most important number for you. This could be an estimation of your first annual revenue, like 9 million per year, based on your market size. Now you can play with this. Like put maybe 9 million seems too much for you and none of the competitors are earning that. So you think it should be less, like put 1% here, and it will recalculate. And now you're getting 1 million a year, which is a good start for the startup. So this is basically how it works. You can always ask me questions in the forum if you got lost, or this is a template, so I tried to make it as general as possible, but you can have very specific or very complicated industry. So feel free to ask me. I'll help you out. I'm always there for you. And you can also actually use the example one. Like if you change too much in the template, now you cannot understand how to go back. You can use the example to see I already fill it up for software for manufacturers. There was a client that were producing software for manufacturing companies in the US and across the world. This is already calculated numbers.